podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cardiff Central Podcast. Once again, it's me, Harley. I'm joined as always by Carwyn. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad at all.
Excellent. Have you thawed out from the weekend?
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you that question, but I had 4 layers on. I was staying as warm as possible. I was quickly in and out of the media room, but I don't know about you on the terraces, how that was.
I'm sure I've left a few toes out there, and I just haven't had a chance to count. But enough about me. I'd like to introduce our guest for this week. So a man I'm very excited to speak to. Been an absolute fan of his videos, and as Progressive Rugby have stated, one of the few people who knows not only how to entertain fans, but crucially make the game appeal to new audiences, and that is Mr. Andrew Forde. Thank you for coming on, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. That's a lot of high praise to start the podcast with, so thank you to Progressive Rugby for saying that. But yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. Looking forward to a chat about all things Cardiff.
I said very, very exciting to have you on. Were you at the game on Saturday?
I was indeed, unfortunately. I did manage to wrap up reasonably warm, so I wasn't too cold and managed to sneak a few pints in before. So had a nice little, wasn't too chilly. It was a bit of I didn't have any gloves or anything, so I did have a pint on the terrace at one point, and that wasn't ideal. But yeah, not the best game to have watched, I'm going to be honest.
And the important question, north or south?
I'll get a lot of stick for this, but North Terrace.
Boo. So before we go into the game, because I quite happily delay talking about it as long as possible. Any news that's come across your desk, Carwyn?
Yeah, a few things. Obviously, I think we'll start with the CTE news, the concussion and case that's going on with several players suing different unions. Several of them have been named. You can find them on any outlet, and obviously that's been a bit of a back and forth on social media. I think it's a difficult one for all those, and obviously I think I speak for all 3 of us when I say our thoughts go out to those players and families that are affected by this, because it is a horrible condition that affects so many players. Past and present, and probably, let's be honest about it, future, as distressing as that might be. But yeah, it's been a bit of a difficult week for all concerned. I think some players weren't aware that they were going to be disclosed to the media, and that's been difficult for them as well, on top of this diagnosis. So that has been a really difficult time for them. But yeah, I suppose all we can say is that we support all of them and hope that they find a way of managing this condition.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you anything you want to add to that one, Andrew?
No, just completely agree. It's just kind of so sad to see the amount of kind of players who've been diagnosed with early onset dementia and probable CTE. It's just horrible to read, really.
Yeah,
as they've already, their names have already come on the pod. Progressive Rugby have done some, doing an awful lot to sort of champion this, and it's not all about just trying to get a fat paycheck. It's about changing the game to protect players and to find, almost a truth finding thing to find out what was known.
Yeah,
I mean, there are numerous pods that have cover this. And one of the latest names to come out is Andrew Coombs, and I think the most frightening thing of that is how young he is. So we've had players in the 50s and 60s and even in the 40s, and all right, be it late 30s, it's still, it's still getting very close to modern rugby, and or a lot of the claims about this being an issue with older, the older generations is not really. It's starting to become a lot worse.
Yeah, and I think something that came out, well, I think it was earlier last week as well, was the lack of information we have about what impact it could have in the women's game. There's a lot of, there aren't a lot of studies to start off with, but the studies that have been made, there's evidence to say that women may have weaker neck muscles, and different factors could contribute into increasing effects of concussion or anything else. So yeah, it's definitely a concerning space for the future that hopefully more research can be done. And when you mention progressive rugby, anyone who needs to know anything about it, contact them, because they know chapter and verse. John Fairclough, Alex Popham, both of them have done some sterling work in this area and can certainly help you out in that if you want any more information.
Yeah, absolutely. What I mean, I feel like we're going from bad to more bad now. Next item, but what else have we got?
Yeah, the next item. Well, I wasn't sure when we were going to talk about this, because obviously we were all there on Saturday and we saw Ben Whitehouse getting various bits of grief. Andrew, you said that he was getting more grief from the Scarlet side than the Cardiff side on the weekend. But it's on the field, it happens, and to some extent you can understand that. But when it's taken to private messages, and in the case of Tom Foley, private messaging and death threats, that is just beyond the pale, frankly. Haven't got other words, just despicable, whatever you want to call it. It's horrific. And that he's decided to step away from the game as a direct result of that. It's not the first case. Wayne Barnes has commented about it. Ben Whitehouse himself has commented about it. Owen Farrell has commented about it and taken a step away from international rugby. So, in short, watch what you say, because these are people first and foremost. They have families, they have people that care for them and people that they want to care for as well. So messaging them and messaging their families and stuff like that is just despicable. Just don't. There's no other way about it, really. On the terraces, I assume, I think, Andrew, you said that when Scarlets fan was saying that they were playing against 16 on the weekend or something like that, that's part and parcel of it. But when it gets to private messaging, it can get a bit, it's just vile, really.
Yeah, I don't want to taint all Scarlets fans under that brush. It was just a couple next to me. But yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, especially there's kind of a sense of irony in the fact that these people are messaging the referees with load of abuse because they think the referees aren't of a good enough quality. But in the long run, by doing that, you're kind of taking away the good referees and discouraging people from getting into refereeing. So it's just kind of, it's this whole circle now where referees are going to be put off getting into the game because of the amount of abuse they're getting, and the quality is going to get worse because of the lack of amount of refs. I know there's a massive problem with that in the community game as well. Just not enough refs want to ref community rugby because they can't put up with the abuse. And so it just seems that something's going to have to change at some point to stop this, really, because it's worrying that both Wayne Barnes and Tom Foley were involved in the World Cup final. So that's half the refereeing team gone now, which is pretty shocking. It's only been just over a month. So yeah.
World Cup final, that I wouldn't say there was that many incidents. It's not like it was. No. Okay, that's actually not true. There were a lot of incidents, but there weren't many that I would say, oh, that was a horrendous decision or anything. It was just, you get two opposing fans wanting to rip into them for whatever happens, and sadly that's what happens. But needs to change.
Absolutely.
Especially as it's one of those things, I think a lot of people who, particularly on X and Facebook and now on Blue Sky, talk about is a lot of the people who I find really, really care. I'm not saying people who moan about the referees don't care about rugby, but a lot of the accounts I follow who love rugby, they find the referee chat probably the most horrific, boring part of the whole thing, because people would much rather be talking about how a try was scored and how defences go. Andrew's videos of seeing the top 15 best missed drop goals turning into tries. It's we want to see the stuff that is about the players, not necessarily about the referees. The idea is a good. They always say a good referee shouldn't be noticed all game because it should be less flow. But we constantly get these situations where two top class referees. All right, there's every chance that Wayne Barnes was going to call it a day at the end of the World Cup final anyway. Because that's, sometimes I feel like the World Cup final is almost the thing of saying, here's your, it's a bit like getting your own barbells game. It's a thank you for your service, go out on a high and so on from the sunset. But Tom Foley's still a fairly young guy. I think he's actually one of the best at, I know when Wayne Barnes and Luke Pearce are getting all the plaudits, I find him an incredibly good referee. I find him very clear and precise. He might not be very pally. He might not be the one who might not be as jovial as other ones, but I find, I always understand where his decisions are. And for me, that's all I want from refereeing. I want to understand, as long as I can understand what he wants from breakdown scrum, whatever, that's great. But yeah, the abuse, I get a lot of the criticism, Ben Whitehouse particularly, because I do feel like he's an ex-scrum half. Of course he's going to be quite showy, quite theatrical. But, I find him actually a very competent referee. I think, certainly a lot better than when he first started out, where he seemed very unsure of himself. I thought his time when he basically pretty much only did TMO work, and now he's come back and he's starting in the middle a bit more. Find him a lot better. I like him to have rewarded jackal penalties a bit more. But, that seems to be the way the game's going, where that's becoming... it's definitely leaning more towards the attacking team. And that in itself, I think, is an interesting thing of how the focus, because every breakdown there's going to be a couple of penalties. I could probably take 3 out and find an excuse for cards in all of them.
I think any Ospreys fan watching the weekend would have said the same thing. I don't know if you've seen that last phase, but the amount of times they got their hands on the ball and don't get rewarded. I'm sure the EV will be commenting on that.
I said, yeah, it's just, I'll admit, I'm one of those people who are joining on the terraces and I will boo every decision against Cardiff. Because for me, I'm just booing. It's just making the atmosphere. It's bringing the theatre to try and put pressure on free. But then I don't go home from the game and think, do you know what I need to do? I need to threaten a man's wife and kids.
Yeah.
Like, I think if your reaction to what is intimately a game where not even the ball makes sense, to go and start threatening the lives of people, there are people out there who can help, because your priorities need to be slightly different. As far as I'm concerned, you can't. I was utterly distraught by the end of that game, but at the same time, I was so getting into the car and I was going to go see my sleeping child. It's prioritize. There's so many more important things in rugby.
Yeah,
I'm saying that as someone who is currently in a room surrounded by rugby jerseys, and I've got some match programs. I've got one good thing from the weekend. So Steve, who was on last week, handed me a copy of Blethen. I've only had a quick flick through. Absolutely fantastic. I recommend it and gets it.
I got it as an early Christmas present from my partner. So from my partner, I should stress. By the way, I didn't force it on her. But yeah, I can highly recommend. It's a great read, really educated, really historical. Read, but also fun, and I think that's part and parcel, isn't it? We're in the entertainment business, and it's an entertaining comic talking about something that happened 70 years ago that is exciting to read. I want to limit cliches, but a real page turner and all that jazz. No. But also has the historical references at the back end of it as well, with information on all the players and stats, and facts and figures, whatever you want from it. It's got everything. It's perfect.
And I feel like that's a sort of nice booster from some serious chat. So speaking of the stupid game that doesn't make sense, where the ball doesn't make sense. So on Saturday we went down 23-29 against the dear rivals, the Scarlets. So that's the third game on the spin. They've beaten us at cap, and third game overall. What are you? I've had a horrific rant on rap. Please listen to that, because I'm going to try and I've been told I'm not positive enough in this pod, so I'm going to try and be positive later. But what are your takes on it?
I think I really look back and think the fact that we went 40-0 up so early and then conceded that try almost immediately after was the kind of basically set it up, really. that to go 14-0 up that quickly and two lineouts where we threw to the back, which considering how bad we are at the lineouts usually, that was bravery to go for that, and both paid off. And who knew we'd actually have a functioning maul for that first try? But then, yeah, Willis to fall off the tackle of Johnny Williams' break was it almost just completely crushed the momentum, I thought. And then from then on, we were kind of playing catch up. And then obviously the red card happened. I can't really have any complaints about the result in the long, looking at the big picture. I thought once again it was a Johan Lloyd show, which wasn't far off that in the reverse fixture, which is always a bit of a kick in the teeth when he's a Cardiff boy.
Glant half boy as well. Two Glant halves on this pod this week, which is good to have. So yes. Big up G-Tab on. I cringe actually. I didn't like saying that. But yeah, I think that 14-0 up is the important thing. The word that was used a couple of times in post-match interviews was complacency. And Josh Adams talked about it. He said, after 20 minutes, I thought we'd beat them by 50. I thought the game would be done by half time. And now I'm not saying this on Josh Adams solely, but he was talking about a culture in the team where they started doing things that were just, the way they got into a 14-0 lead was kick to the corner, driving maul, try. Kick to the corner, fake a driving maul, pull out, and then score in the far corner with Cam Winner. They then go to some crossfield kicks, which, okay, one of the Thomas Williams ones, if it comes off, it's beautiful, but in the end, it lands in Johnny Williams' hands, fine. The other one, okay, is off penalty advantage. You can kind of excuse that, but there's a lack of structure there. There's also the odd miss pass that possibly doesn't need to be a miss pass. That was something that Jockey called out. It was like, we were sending floated out passes to the wings that didn't need to be. But in the end, it was a case of just lack of concentration straight after scoring. Andrew mentioned it there, conceding a try straight away. There was a penalty in the second half, straight after the penalty, conceded a try with Steph Evans that, I don't know about you guys, but we in the media were just chatting like, Cardiff are back in this. And then all of a sudden, Steph Evans is running in the corner. And you're like, how's that happened? Which was actually really difficult to write about. But that seemed to be the way that the game was going. Frustrating again. But I think there are a lot of positives to also take from the game that I'm sure we'll talk about as we go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you any other highlights or lowlights you want to bring up, Andrew?
I thought it was nice to see how players like Kieran Azarati, I thought, played really well. But at the same time, there's almost a bit of a frustration that I kind of saw the front row we had. And we did get the upper hand on them at the scrum, but didn't kind of make that count enough, I thought. That, to think a few years ago, if someone told you Kieran Azarati would be dominating Wyn Jones in the scrum, you wouldn't believe that now. But it almost just seemed kind of inevitable. With the way Kieran Azarati's been playing recently, especially. And first came back for a while, I thought he played really well. So that was nice little positives. I thought Thomas played quite well as well. I thought one thing I kind of noticed was in the lead up to the first Scarlets try, well, not even the lead up, Tina Stabia goes for a tackle on Johnny Williams where he completely no arms him. And I think if that wasn't a try, that's getting checked and he's getting yellow carded. So it's kind of, and probably penalty try as well. So that he was very lucky with that. I don't really know what he was thinking because he committed very early on Johnny Williams as well by going for the no arms tackle. So it was kind of an inevitable try there. But yeah, we've definitely got the building blocks there, I think. But with the way that Scarlets played last week against the Ospreys, you just think we should be winning those games, especially at home. So there's big element of disappointment from that, really.
Yeah, I think spot on. That's a spot on assessment, to be honest. I think, Harley, you were a bit more pragmatic before the game, but I said something like Cardiff by 15 points. The way Scarlets played the week before, I thought they were really poor. The front dominance, talking a front row with two internationals that showed they were internationals in Domachowski and Azarati. And Teddy, I thought, played well. Okay, had his moment where he's trying to do something clever but doesn't quite do it with the offside penalty, which I won't bore too many people about the complexity of that. But I think there was some daft penalties given away again. That was maybe another, the late hit from Seb. I thought that was a bit of a one that you're going to regret. But overall, you look at that front five were dominant up until the red card, where that changes the scrum dynamic. The back row, I thought, were pretty dominant as well. Mackenzie Martin, what a run in the second half. If he was probably a couple of inches away from having a dream starting debut with a try as well. So, but then again, those are the tight margins. You don't put, if he scores that try, I think Cardiff win the game. I really do. I think that was one of those flip of a coin moments that if gives Scarlets the confidence to think, okay, yeah, we can still win this. If Cardiff score that with 14 men coming from behind, I think they see it out.
Yeah,
but he had a really good game apart from that, so I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, I thought he was great on his first start. I thought Cam Winnett was imperious in the backfield again. So I went to the game, so you can see the vlog of it on the Rap YouTube channel, which we're at 74 subscribers now. So please like, subscribe, and share with your friends to so we can get some stuffs. But so me and you were this, and she was just like, is he got magnets in his hands or something? Because he just seemed to always he chased his own kick, and in the time it taken for the Scarlets to kick back, he somehow was back in the backfield, ready to either field a kick or run it back. One thing that I think people got to say, yes, we only lost by 6, but a large part of that is because Lloyd missed 6 points from the tee, and let's put it, it was 2 tries to 5, and it did seem complacency that it seemed like we stopped playing after the first 10 minutes. 15 minutes. There was a bit in the second half to get us back in the lead where we tried to compensate for having one less player by just by dragging Scarlets into a kicking duel, which I know is not what people who go down to the Arms Park want to see Cardiff doing. But Scarlets are really bad at kicking, and it's the way you beat them. And it looked like that, all right, it wasn't going to be pretty, but it was going to be the way to hold them back. And then we sort of got into lead, and I thought, we're in the lead again. That's fine. And then, again, we're letting in that quick try. I think the thing that frustrates me so much is because of last week, the week before against the Stormers, where, we were a lot more on it in defence. We were a lot more in the game. And even though I'd say maybe at times we looked worse in attack against the Stormers, the effort was there on the other side of the ball. And that seemed to be missing a bit for me. I know I'm going to get slated for being negative, but I think when you're talking about two regional sides, you can't use the excuse of, we haven't got the money. We haven't got we're having to field academy lads. So are the Scarlets. Yeah, right, they might have a couple more internationals, but one of the internationals is Wyn Jones is a shadow himself. And most Scarlets fans will admit that as well. It's just frustrating. Jockey himself said he saw Saturday's game, Benetton and the Bulls as games we should have won. Yeah. Not could have, should have. And we've missed out. My big complaint last year was that games where we could have, we were in the fight and we could have won, or should have won. We then tailed away in the last 10 minutes and, we lose by 8, 9, 10 points. Whereas now we're, at least finishing within 7 and picking up losing bonus points. And that's going to help us towards the end of the season when we're sorting wheat from the chaff. But I do feel like, we keep talking about how our fixtures are running. Scarlets at home should be a game we win. I know it's one we frequently don't. If you look at the history of particularly the last 10 seasons, but it is one we should win. And it is one. I was that annoyed by the whole game. I just went, right, I'm not doing social media. I'm not doing rugby on Sunday. I'm not cashing up on any games. I'm just gonna have a day with the kid. And we're gonna have just spend time because I needed to calm down. And mostly defrost, to be honest, because it was bloody cold. It says something when I'm opting for a cup of tea over a pint.
Yeah, I think that is some way. I think Cardiff are like the opposite of Benetton at the moment.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen Benetton's result. They won again by 5. They don't win by more than 7, but they're just pragmatic, get the job over the line, and Cardiff are just not doing that at the moment, and that's where the frustration lies. But do we want to talk red card gate, by the way, because we've sort of skirted around it? I don't think there's much of a gate I got in my opinion, but I'll let you two boys discuss it first, maybe.
Let's go.
I'll just. I think at the time I felt a bit annoyed with it, as in I tried to argue that it was a yellow card. Then actually watching it then back after, it's a clear-cut red card. The only thing I would say is that I thought Ben Whitehouse's description of it is that he just picks him up and then discards him is a bit harsh, because I know that Dan Davis's jump isn't enough of a jump that it's like he's, being tipped over kind of, but it's very difficult for someone to have control of someone who's doing a bit of a hurdle like that. And I think I kind of compared it to the Sam Cane red card in the final, that Jesse Creel's clocked that kind of Sam Cane's in an awkward position, runs at him, and Sam Cane just doesn't have time to adjust. It's a clear-cut red card. It's unfortunate, but it's a red card. And I think that's the case with Ellis Jenkins, that it's unfortunate he's found himself in that position. I think he just got up from making a tackle as well, so he's kind of in a position where he's coming so much lower than he probably usually would if he was stood upright, and so just completely loses control and kind of hits him the way that he does into the ground. I think, realistically, in hindsight, Whitehouse had no choice but to give a red card.
I'd agree. For my 2 pence, it's a tackle that I got to be honest, straight away when I saw him, I was on my feet. I was like, "Oh, he's in trouble here," because it doesn't. It looks worse actually live. That some of these look worse on replays. I think that one looked worse live because it was such a it was at such pace because it had just been offloaded, bang, bang, bang. And Ellis is obviously jumping here, there, and everywhere, and trying to tackle about 6 guys at the same time. Fair play to him, but he just gets it wrong. The line that's been shared around everywhere is that he's not that sort of player. I think we all know. I think it was his first red card in certainly senior rugby or senior professional rugby that we could come across. But he's got it wrong. He's not that sort of player, yes, but I can't really disagree with the interpretation. I see Jockey's side of it a bit, where he's talking about post-match that a number of those, if you don't land on your head, if the tackled player doesn't land on their head, it doesn't tend to be a red card. However, I actually feel in this case the speed of it, how violently it ends up being, not saying it was a violent act, but how violently he falls, I think it is a red card, and I agree with the interpretation, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be a hypocrite if I said otherwise, because I've said on this pod and on the wrap that with the whole real duck, I can't remember who the player was who tipped it was Prothero, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, it was either Prothero or Luke Morgan. I apologize.
Luke Morgan.
Osprey's wingers, but Luke Morgan.
Yeah.
And I said, if the only thing saving you is player self-preservation, then it should be a red. I don't think they're not the same, I would say, because he does land on his shoulder first on his head, but I do feel like Ellis, I know he's not, he's probably not in the control he'd like to be in that one, but it's still his responsibility to make sure Dan Davis gets down on the ground properly. I feel like shoulder with incidental to the head isn't good enough mitigate. At the time, I thought it was, but I mean, it's, I mean, seen on this, being in the Southwest Terrace and trying to look down at the screen over in the, in the East Terraces, it's really hard to see where point of contact is. I've seen it since, and I've said on rap, I could have seen if I could have, I wouldn't necessarily be happy, but I could see why you give it a yellow, but I have no complaints. It's a red. It's one of those where I can't argue it. I think it does change. Normally, I wouldn't say it necessarily. I wouldn't say it directly changed the game in the other fact that we've lost one of our best turnover guys, and in a game where we're struggling to get over, we need someone who can cleanly get the ball away. Losing Alice Jenkins, particularly without having a out and out 7 on the bench, we struggled with that. But them's the breaks. I do feel like he's unfortunate, but it's still red.
I think he'd have been I think he'd be luckier to get a yellow than he was unlucky to get a red, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
One area I do think it had a huge impact on the game is the amount of space it gave Johan Lloyd. Because I was trying to work out, Andrew, did you ever play with Johan?
Yeah, no, I did in school. He obviously was quite good, so he played a year above. So I'll say a little anecdote. I remember one time he came on for us, and the opposition fly half was quite a big bloke, and Johan at that time was quite small, and they kind of chuckled when they saw him come on. So they sent their fly half straight down towards him, and Johan just picks him up and dumps him. So that's a good anecdote. But yeah, played with him probably a few occasions in school, but that's about it.
Yeah, I assume you've seen those lightning fast feet before as well.
Yeah. It's not a surprise he's professional, just put it that way. And it's just such a shame that, like I said before, against Cardiff, a Cardiff boy, a Glantaf boy, producing that sort of performance in Cardiff, because he played very well in the reverse fixture as well, but to come to Cardiff and play that well was, not easy to take.
Yeah, he did play well. I thought Gareth Davis played well in a very different way as well. But yeah, it was. I think that's what we said, wasn't it, Harley, the week before, wasn't it? That they had individuals that could break the game, and we pretty much named them with Johan and Johnny McNichol, and along with Johnny Williams, to be fair, who did have a very good game. They did a job.
Yep. I need to stop giving him stick, because whenever I give him stick, he always ends up having a fantastic game the next week. Even if I refer to him as a bag of bones and rat tonight. Scarlets have some absolute proper game breaker players, and all of them are on song. And it's hard to stop them going forward when they're in moods like that, particularly when you're down a man and when you're not necessarily firing shots yourself. But there are some things like the set piece is starting to look better than it ever has. So that is a positive. I don't know if that's just because as well the Scarlets are struggling so much with the road and they weren't really focused on trying to do anything to ours. I said, and Cam Winnett is an international class player. He just is. Like he just looks a cut above a lot of the rest out there. I thought Vi Fafita is always possibly one of the best overseas signings out there. So I just left the game feeling quite deflated, and I said, and then having to talk to Lee, like dealing with Hughes not so bad. He's quite measured, but then I had to chat with Lee for an hour and a half, and we had same on Williams talking as well. So I had 2 Scarlets gloating about it just over an hour ago. So it's a bit of a hard take. I said that's the wife's. Although admittedly, that's more because she was a halfpenny fan more than the Scarlets fan. I said, do either of you have anything else you want to add on to Saturday's game?
Not too much. I think everything's been said from my point of view.
Not on Saturday's game as a whole, but maybe looking back on the block of 7.
Yeah, maybe do a block review in a bit, because I said that part of the reason I wanted to get Andrew on is to talk about his many wonderful videos. So So I said I'll just kick off. I'm sure Karen will have a few questions as well. But what made you decide to start the channel and to make all these wonderful compilation videos?
Thank you very much for the kind words. Essentially, it was about 2017, so I was in sixth form at this point. It was around when Alex Cuthbert was getting a lot of stick by Wales fans. And I think it wasn't too far before the 2017 Six Nations, and that he got called up for the squad and he was getting all sorts of stick. And I've kind of dabbled with like making videos before. Like just if you actually go on my YouTube and look at the oldest videos, there are some quite cringe old videos of me when I was like 10. And various like slideshows and highlights of essentially nonsense. But I started this with I just made a video of Cuthbert's best bits, and probably didn't take me too long to make. Posted it, and then within a day, it got like 1,000 views, which to me at the time was just absolutely incredible. And then the next day, I was just in school, and went into the bistro, and someone went, "Oh, you're on Wales Online." I was like, "What are you on about?" It's like, "Oh yeah, your video has made an article on Wales Online." So kind of my mates were then just encouraging me, just carry on. And so back then I would literally I remember like on a Tuesday, wouldn't have a lesson until about 12 o'clock. So my goal would be to wake up, do a video, and then get that posted. So I was only doing like one video a week. And then it just kind of built from there. Somehow people enjoyed it, which was a surprise. And yeah, just carried on doing it all through sixth form, all through university, and still doing it now.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. So I said it. I so love your little series about you in France. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to meet up for the game in Lyon. But
Yeah,
I said I find them great background. I'll be there going through some data and work, and I'll put on like great tackles or this or fantastic tries or weird ways to score a try. That's excellent. When it comes to there's some obvious ones that people think of best tries, big hits and stuff. But when it comes to picking like some of the more unusual ones, like 50-22s, which some people might not necessarily like. I think it's a great idea. What makes you decide one what topic you're going to build a video around, and two, which clips it particularly you're going to look into and to include?
so essentially some of the videos will be like prepared like a year in advance. So like at the moment I'm doing the best of 2023 of various moments in rugby. And like in January last year, I was like bookmarking and making notes of good tries. So they're kind of, in some ways, 12 months in the making. But some videos I will just literally realize I haven't got a video done for tomorrow. What could possibly be good? And sometimes it can be as simple as I'll be watching a game of rugby. I think one of the videos I did was like funny sideline moments. I was watching that Osprey Sale game where Sam Cross had the green whistle and was pretending to act high. And I just thought, oh, that's funny. How do I get that into a video? And then it just kind of built from there. So it's very odd how it kind of works. But with like the 50-22 video, for example, to kind of find the exact type of 50-22s, I will literally just search on Twitter 50-22. I try and follow as many rugby accounts as I can. So I like put the setting on people I follow, and then there'll be videos from like people like Jared Wright's really good on Twitter. There's various others like AP, just general accounts like Super Rugby, Six Nations as well. And then I'll kind of be able to make a note from there and just find basically every 50-22 I possibly can find. Obviously, there's some that aren't particularly fun to watch, but you can find the odd one from like the MLR that's brilliant. So you can chuck that in.
Excellent. Colin, do you want to sort of from
Yeah.
the side of you?
Yes, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of. Well, I'll leave the media question for a bit because that's anyone who's seen recent Squidge stuff will know that that's a bit of a topic. But how much of it with players, then you said Alex Cuthbert, you did it because he's getting stick. Sometimes I think, am I right in saying sometimes players can reach out and say, do you mind posting something for me or that sort of thing? Does that happen often? And do you have an example that you can say? I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, it happens to a decent extent. So I do now actually. I will do kind of freelance where I will charge players for certain videos, and it depends on the type of video. So that can literally range from players' agents messaging me. So I actually did one, I think about a year ago for Peter O'Mahony's agent, which was quite surreal. But there's often quite a few kind of Welsh regional players. So I've done one for Ben Fry, who's obviously I think off to MLR now, just of his highlights in the last few seasons for the Dragons. I did one for Sam Cross, funny enough, actually, about a year ago as well. And I also did one for Jake Pelledri, which was the first one I ever did, that his partner reached out to me asking if I could do a video. And so that was the first one I ever did about, I think, like 2020, kind of in the middle of COVID. So, yeah, it's kind of surreal that players reach out to me asking for videos when I'm just a kid in Cardiff in his bedroom editing them, whilst they're the ones actually doing the rugby, and that they think that I have some sort of way of jazzing up their rugby. It's all quite surreal.
But that is part of the thing, isn't it? You're trawling through to find bits and bobs that will showcase them in their best light, and you're good at it. Like, it's not, we've heard the words of progressive rugby earlier. Harley's obviously said itself, but you are good at it, and that's why you get it. The media question is probably more than the rights issues. That is obviously a big question, and I think anyone who's followed Squidge recently has seen the difficulty he had during the World Cup. Anyone, Wayne Barnes' clip that was taken down, that was quite a surreal moment. But what have you encountered there, and what's been the difficulties, and how have you found, not ways around it, but how have you approached it?
So it is a grey area to an extent, that I obviously don't own the footage. So it isn't my footage necessarily to use, but I would argue that if I was posting a full match footage, then I'd argue that would be taking the mick a bit. But I'm clipping these specific stuff together. Some range from literally, like, I did a tries video the other day that included footage from an under-20s game in Zimbabwe, the AIL in Ireland, that kind of thing. And you clipping up with like international tries, like the World Rugby Try of the Year, in the same compilation as a Glantav try I put in as well, because it was such a good try. So it's kind of, I'd argue that. I did used to kind of encounter some problems. Back in the day, I had some videos taken down from Six Nations, Super Rugby, Sansa, but I genuinely haven't encountered any problems in the last probably 3 years. So I've been doing it for coming up to 7 years, which is a bit mental to think. But I've also had dialogue with quite a lot of the rights holders. So not sure if I'm able to say, but like I've had communication with the Six Nations about it, and they're very much like crack on, because it puts Six Nations in a good light. And likewise, I've had the URC communicate with me that they're happy for videos to be used. So that's definitely helpful. Obviously, I can't say the same for like Super Rugby and stuff like that, or World Rugby, but I'd like to think, because I haven't encountered any problems in the last few years, then hopefully there's some sort of positive relationship going on. And I would say I did actually get a direct message from World Rugby in the summer that quite a few others on Twitter got when they launched Rugby Pass TV. They were like, this will help with your work. So they're clearly aware of what's going on, but it's a bit of a weird kind of contrast that presumably they've sent that message to someone like Squidge, and then, at the same time, they're taking his videos down with such bad communication. So, essentially that's the gist of it, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I sometimes work a little bit behind the scenes on SLC's Twitter and stuff like that, clipping up. And you see, like, I clipped up something the other day, which was Aberavon's coach Jason Hyatt crying, basically post match. I don't know if you've seen that, but you then see that video being quote tweeted, but also now on Twitter, there's all sorts of different functions which you can just basically hold down a video and repost the video, and it does come up at the bottom saying from S4C, but no one's going to click on that. No one's going to follow the route back to that, really. So it's a bit in the modern world of Twitter. It's a bit more of a loose way of working, I think. But for you as well, what about advertising your stuff? Because I really enjoy the way you do the really short versions on Twitter, the sort of short version of your video to sort of advertise what's going to happen and what is available. Is that a case of finding the best bits, or are you taking like one good bit, I'll leave that really good nugget in the video for the diehard fans or for the people who have gone through?
Yeah, it is kind of tactical because, but besides, I can't. I certainly couldn't post videos that were longer than 2 minutes 20 onto Twitter. So that was part of the reason of why I did it. And then initially, because I couldn't post videos that were longer than 60 seconds on Instagram, I would just make them about 59 seconds so that I didn't have to make 2 separate videos. But Instagram's a lot looser now as well. But essentially, yeah, if you ever like click on the actual full video, often the first clip will never be the first clip in the Twitter video, because often the first clip is kind of one of the best clips. So like today I did like the best drop goals in 2023. Jack Crowley started that because it was one of the more kind of significant drop goals in 2023. And it was probably about halfway through the Twitter video. So it's just, and often a lot of people will like watch the Twitter videos and assume it's just the opening clip for some reason, then comment on it without acknowledging that there's also other clips in this video. But yeah, that's kind of the way to do it. That I will then kind of, because obviously there's trouble with like World Rugby and stuff, that if I've got like footage from a Rugby World Cup game a few years ago, I won't include that on Twitter just in case they take it down. But again, I don't think I've had too many problems on Twitter or Instagram really, which is quite nice.
Yeah, my final one is a really basic one because Harley mentioned our following, what it is. What is yours currently?
Sorry?
What's your following? Because Harley mentioned our following of the rap.
Oh, right.
What is yours by now?
Oh, it's close. It's very close.
I'll have to double check.
That's good.
No,
that's a sign of a non-narcissist, isn't it?
So I said, just as a cheat, so I've got some clip notes up. 130,000 subscribers.
Oh, is it 130,000?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I think
I'm guessing it's over because I think after a certain amount, YouTube just truncates it.
Yeah, it definitely was. 29,000, I think, a few days ago. So that's quite nice. So I've got 25,000 on going with posting on there. I probably should get more on it, but it's a different. Oh, did my Wi-Fi go a bit there?
Yeah,
it did a little bit.
Just a bit. I think got what I said. Yeah, so yeah.
Shall I start again?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, what was I talking about? YouTube.
So we're just on the YouTube. Yeah. So you said a couple of days ago it was 129,000.
Yeah. So it's a bit nice to see it's gone up. I've got decent amount of followers on other socials, so I think it's not much over 10,000 on Twitter, and I think on Instagram it's near 20,000. But it's also quite cool, kind of seeing the people that follow various social medias as well. Like weirdly enough, I've got Rob Carney on Twitter, Nemani Nandolo on Twitter. I got Faf de Klerk somehow on Instagram. Alex Cuthbert on Instagram, which is kind of nice because that's all full circle then. And yeah, I think Damien Dialende followed me on Twitter the other day, so that was also quite cool. And obviously there's a few Cardiff boys as well, so that's always nice to see. Little kind of I just kind of think that when I was younger, if I was like knew that those like certain players would be following me, I'd probably be like ecstatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I said, yeah. So there's us trying to get that 100. Yeah, I said, just more of an intriguing question, because I think you'll get where this one's going. Roughly, how long does it take you to, or like, yeah, I'm guessing it must vary as well, but to get a video, because obviously Cardiff signed a player over the summer, and within minutes of announcing it, there was a video on my feed that said, "This is who Tina Stabir is," from you. So, did you have that one ready? Did you have a bit of insider knowledge there, or was
Yeah,
it
it's not
just able to get the clips quickly?
it's not insider knowledge as such. It's obviously like you kind of see the media reports and stuff. So you kind of, I'd say there's probably about 100 videos that I've kind of started that I've then scrapped and not bothered with. But that's more like Twitter kind of videos. And I do keep the Twitter videos quite short. And so I think there was one time I had like prepared a Dan Evans line break video, because back in the day, you used to just break the line as if it was nothing. And then it was announced that he'd retired. And it was up to like about a minute and a half. And I was like, oh, sorry, I'll just post it now as a happy retirement, Dan Evans. And I think I had a few people message me, just DM me going, how the hell have you done that so quickly? But it's just, yeah, it's one of those that with videos, some of them will take a long time. Like some of them will take kind of days at a time. But those are sort of videos I won't be doing like flat out days at a time. I'll be doing a little bit and then add a little bit more. Like, because I'm doing these end of year videos, I've literally got about 10 videos kind of in the making right now, but some of them are literally like 10 seconds long because I've just found one clip that fits that one perfectly. But I did a Justin Tipuric video after he announced his retirement for Wales, and I did time that, and somehow it took me 4 hours, which was a bit mad because it was about 13 minutes long, I think. I'll just double check.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 13 minutes long. And it was just one of those things that certainly if I was doing what I was doing when I'd started, it would take me a lot longer. But kind of as the years have gone by and the amount of videos I've produced have gone by, I've kind of developed a bit of a like autopilot mode with kind of knowing what to get, knowing what to look through, knowing what clips to sort of search for. And you get quite a decent grasp of it from then on. So if I was doing it a few years ago, it would have taken me a lot longer than 4 hours, but it's kind of definitely developed kind of a good way of doing them now.
You running? How many more topics have you got left? I was just I was just thinking that you now scrabbling around for ideas in your head, or you still do they just come up and you're like, oh, that's easy, I can pop that one on for today, pop that one. Are you starting to think, oh no, I've done that before, what have I got, can I talk about?
It kind of varies. So I have literally got like a document for the notes that have got like really kind of no effort attempts of potential videos. And one thing I often do is I do look at what like the football channels on YouTube are posting and get an idea from that to kind of obviously not do the exact same, but kind of get an idea of what sort of thing they focus on, and then I can do it from there. But literally, I've got on a document right now, I've got currently written out all my schedule for December of the kind of the best in 2023. And so that's already kind of not half the videos aren't even done yet, but I have an idea of what I'm going to do, and the order will naturally just change of what's easiest, what's more convenient. Like there's various try videos in there. I'm not going to do them one day after the other, so it's just tries for 5 days, because if I spread it out, people will probably be more interested. But yeah, I think there's definitely some days where I do wake up and think, I have no idea what I'm going to do for the next 2 weeks. But then there's some times where it just seems to kind of just come up. Like I said, the whole Sam Cross thing. I'm sure something will come up in the next few weeks where I'll see some sort of piece of play and be like, right, that could be good for a video.
Class. No, I really enjoy them. I'm sure Harley does as well because they are great to watch. As you mentioned, easy watching, all like a bit more interesting. It reminded there used to be Fox used to do something with Sean Maloney's like top fives, like that. That used to be class, and this has been the thing that I've gone to since because it's just really it's just nice to watch great clips of rugby, and I think that's the simple thing of it, isn't it? It's just that's what you are doing is polishing up great clips of rugby and great skill that other people are doing, but you are adding your own great skill on top of it, basically.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd say with the Sean Maloney as well, there's definitely an inspiration there because I think one of the first early videos I did was the stupidest brain fades, which was one of the Sean Maloney top 5 brain fades that I kind of just went from there, but added a bit more. And now those videos tend to do really well.
Yeah. What was his brain phase? Wasn't one the Bulk Cease one?
Yeah, I think Burger Masco at 9 as well was one of them, of course.
Yeah, one of the things I do like about the videos is you'll be watching and then it'll just be you'll see clips you expect to see, and then there'll be one and you're like, oh fucking hell, I forgot that happened. That was bizarre. And there'd be things like when Nigel Owens had to just say it's a yellow card. I forgot my cards because I've forgotten it happened, and it's just one of those things that you're just like, Achha. Or I think it was I can't remember. I think it might have been versus Ireland where we missed a penalty and the ball bounced off the paps and Mellon catches it and just runs in and scores a try. And it was one of those ones I was like, I thought I imagined that. Oh, I'm glad there's actual video evidence of it. So I thought as been quite a bit of a light-hearted thing, I thought I'll go through listeners' questions. You haven't got too many. They're all from Liam again. I have to say thank you, Liam. It gives us some things to talk about. So just a few sort of quick questions. I'll open up to both of you. So first one up is the favourite away ground you've ever been to, because also we all know Cap is the best, even though it is freezing. So I think I'll start with you, Andrew. What's the favourite away ground you've ever been to, or just a favourite ground you've been to?
Yeah, I haven't actually been to too many, but I went to, I think it was the start of last season, we went to Gloucester, Cardiff away, one of the pre-season friendlies, and we were stood in the shed, and I really enjoyed that. I think that would be quite nice if there was like a European game against Gloucester. I think that would be a really nice game because it's down the road, really. So I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I went to Ulster away a few years ago, and the fans in Ulster were lovely as well, and it's really good ground. So yeah, I'd say those two are probably up there.
Yeah, everyone talks about Gloucester and the shed. I haven't been to too many either, actually. That's on my bucket list of things to do, basically. But I think top of that bucket list is Racing at the moment. I can't. It doesn't look anywhere like it to watch rugby. So that is top of the list to watch at any time that I get the opportunity. I did try and swindle a trip to Castra this weekend, but strangely enough, BBC didn't want to provide the budget for that. Quite rightly so, I should add. But yeah, I did try and swindle a trip to Castra. But yeah, that doesn't kind of happen.
It's a bit of a bummer with this one because I said, I think away in terms of going to see Cardiff play away, I've only actually been to Dave's Parade and Swansea.com, and Dave is better than Swansea.com. Just a shout of ground, more actually community level I went to. So the Blackmore, which is the Sidmouth RFC home ground. I think that's a cracking little clubhouse, and they've got a nice little seating terrace there, and then we've also got Topsham again in sort of like that extra area. I think as well as a lovely little pitch and things in clubhouse, and the locals are all there, really passionate rugby people. I get a lot of stick when I give a shout out.
Sorry, I was going to say, should we give a shout out to Haley Park as well? But
go for it, man. Go for it. Show. I said, why does it have to be pro games? I say Gloucester's definitely on my bucket list. I'd quite like to do some of the Irish stadiums. I'm a sadist, so I'd very much like to go to the sports ground in Galway.
Yes.
As great as the Disco Dome would be, saying that, actually, I mean, I know it's normally a football stadium, but the place where we went to see where I saw Wales versus Australia and Leon, I thought that was a
Yeah,
cracking ground.
yeah, that was definitely. I managed to go to all the group games and the quarter final, and I'd say the Leon one was the nicest. It was the nicest, but it was unfortunately the worst in terms of accessibility. It was so far from the city, and it was a 9 o'clock kickoff, so that was a bit of a nightmare. But definitely the best stadium, and definitely helped that we won in the way that we did.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought the stadium announcers were almost as good as too good, but not quite. So next one. So I suppose we've sort of gone on this. We've mentioned that. So the next one follows on quite nicely. Is the dream away trip. I think. Yeah, I think all of us would quite like to go to the Disco Dome, but anywhere else that would quite fancy. I think internationally, I'd love to go to Tbilisi, see Georgia play.
Interesting. I mean, it's in terms of like practicality that I think there's a few stadiums in South Africa I'd be keen to visit if there was a Wales South Africa game. But yeah, I think in terms of one kind of dream away, it is a bit of a shit stadium, but I'd love if Cardiff played Bath away at some point. That would be good because again, it's just down the road. I think you'd get a good turnout for that game, and we seem to be playing them at home this year instead. But I think that would be. I've only been to the Rec once. I went to university in Bath, so it was on my doorstep there, and only went once for some reason. But it's kind of a nice community of fans there, and like when we played them at home a couple of years ago in a pre-season friendly, the fans were great value. So I'd really like that sort of away trip for the kind of the camaraderie of all being together against Bath just down the road.
Yeah, I like where Bath Stadium is. It's quite a nice location and all that, right on the river and things. It surprised me when I was there, but yeah, not the top of the list of great stadiums, but it would be a nice trip. I'd Stoop. I'd like to go to Stoop. I think that's one that having seen. I haven't watched the Ospreys down there. It looked quite a good atmosphere, to be fair, surprisingly. And it's not. There's something about it not being Twickenham, but being the Stoop. There's something, I don't know what it is. It's like the budget version, not quite, but you know what I mean, like that budget trip where you're going up to the Stoop, and it looks like it could be quite a fun ground to be at. But yeah, Gloucester as well, as we've mentioned it a couple of times. But yeah, anyone wants to hear about the great Gloucester shed, like Richard Hibbard talks about it brilliantly about the ridiculousness of the shed. But I think there were like fans like 2 hours before kickoff that he was walking around. He's like, "What? Why are you here? Why are you already here?" But they are bonkers up there. Fair play.
Yeah, I've got a few friends who support Gloucester, but really, we've been trying to find a time when all of us can head up that way to go see it. I love it. So moving on, obviously all three of us are very much Cardiff supporters. We're blue and black rims right the way through. But are there any other teams that either of you have a soft spot for? Whether it be in the Irk or in one of the other leagues?
I'd say because I went to university in Bath, I've got a kind of soft spot for Bath. At the same time, the game I went to see Bath play was against Wasps, and at the time, Di Young was coach and Thomas Young was playing for them, so I was supporting Wasps. So I kind of contradict myself a bit there. But I've also got a bit of a soft spot now for Quins with both Jared and Dylan having gone down there. There's something nice about it as well. It's almost Cardiff dominated now because I've got Billy Millard as director of rugby and Danny Wilson's one of the senior coaches there as well. But like I kind of like the way Danny Kerr plays, the way Marcus Smith plays, the way Andre Esterhazen plays. It's such a good kind of brand of rugby for club rugby. So definitely got a soft spot for them.
So what about you, Karen?
To be fair, all those clubs would probably be up there for English, but I'll go a bit further afield. I'll go Perpignan. No idea why. Just really like them. I always liked it. I think it's the kit back in the day was just a bit different. it always felt like a proper European tie to play against Perpignan, because it was just a completely different kit. The style of play was exciting. Normally sunny weather conditions, beautiful conditions. They try different things. Perpignan for some reason is definitely up there for me. You mentioned Bath and Bristol, and when the Welsh ties were up there was a bit of a temptation there. But yeah, I was probably more Bath than Bristol in the end, even though I lived in Bristol for 2 years. So yeah.
So English team for me is always Bristol all the way. I just love the mad kits. I thought they were great. Which, you know, it surprises everyone down here in Devon, thinking, "Oh, you've said you've moved here from Wales. Why are you picking Exeter?" It's like, I like Bristol, and they cross away. But speaking of kits, so the whole reason I support the Dallas Jackals in MLR is because I just thought the kits were really good. I said in last season it was great because they had this hoop. You know, they went hoop and quarters, so I mean that's always going to be a win for a Cardiff fan. But the hoop kit, look, it was just like a classic Argentinian, but with a pale green as opposed to blue, and it was just absolutely wonderful. But yeah, I mean that's sort of insight into what I do if I have no actual link to a place. Because I'll be like, oh, the kit's pretty. I can at least look at them when they're losing every week.
Better than my connection for my picking my NHL team, to be fair. I just went, I really like Roman history. Senators, Ottawa Senators. that was my reasoning.
We all have our reasons. A bit of a controversial because I do think we, you know, trying to keep it positive, but I do feel like it's a good chance to niggle. So it's a final one from Lima's. Can you name a team that you? I'm going to go with dislike as opposed to hate. I hope you don't mind, but we change the question there, Liam. A team that you dislike that isn't Leinster or Saracens. I mean, the obvious answer is the Ospreys, right?
Yeah, I'd say you naturally dislike all the other Welsh regions because it's kind of in your DNA, isn't it? I think you do often have a soft spot for one of them, but yeah, I'd say you naturally dislike all the Welsh regions. I'd say if there was one team that I'd dislike, it is weirdly enough Munster, because I find they're a team that whenever we play them, it's always such a close game that obviously there's the odd exception, but I just remember that COVID year, we played them 3 times and all 3 games went down to the wire, and there were games we should have won. And we'd get smashed by other teams that in the league, and yet Munster just always seemed to be a close game. And so I think they play such a good brand of rugby, but I dislike them from the point of view of it's always just such a horrible team to come up against.
I'll say I've got a huge soft spot for Munster. But I think that's the reason why Caelan from the KNS Rugby podcast invited me onto his pod because he knew I was just a big Munster softie. Weird how to fit. I don't know why I've never liked Newcastle. I've always had a thing. I don't know what it was. There's no reason for me to dislike them. I just always have. Because I love, like, it's not nothing to do with the place. Because I quite like Newcastle. I like Geordies. I just hate the team. And there's no reason because you feel like it's a proper working class club. But I really dislike them. There's again nothing grounded in it. So it thrilled me so much when we did the double over them in the Challenge Cup last year.
I would have agreed until they had that wing combination of, was it Gonover and Sinotti? I just loved watching them play. They were so good value. Up until then, though, I'd have agreed. Like Toby Flood there and Wilkinson before. I was just like, oh no, I can't get behind this, even though again, obviously great players, but partly probably Welsh bias. Leicester's the one for me. Just never liked them, and that's going to sound sour grapes from Champions Cup gone by, but it is before that. It's just the whole mentality there of forwards win games and all that sort of, it may be true, but still the whole mentality that was going on there, the whole pack, the Neil back moment. There's so many reasons that I disliked them going back. So Leicester, although with Tommy Raphael there, and performing well as he did on the weekend, scoring a hat-trick, it does soften it a little bit for me. The other one would be Glasgow. Absolutely no reason why. That's another one where I've got no reason for it, but just no. Yeah, very happy whenever Cardiff beat Glasgow, or any side beat Glasgow, to be fair.
See, you do like Munster, really, if you're that anti-Glasgow.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm also trying to. Also, it's quite fun to annoy some of the Scottish rugby pod. To be fair, so picking one side or the other, it's always a good option.
Now, let's be fair. If there's any bunch of people who can take a wind up in how it's going, it's those guys. To be fair.
Yeah.
So, shall we? As we said, URC's finished a massive block of 7 games in a row. Do you just want to have a quick 20, 30 seconds each, just to sum up how we feel Cardiff have done over these 7 games?
Yeah, sure. I'd say could be a lot worse, but could be a lot better. I think there's quite a few games, as we've already discussed, that we really should have won. And it's frustrating kind of looking back that how you think if we had certain players fit, how better we'd have fared in those games. But hopefully, I think we can learn from those games, the old cliche, and just kind of learn the better kind of game management from there. And in future games, hopefully we'll come out with a win rather than a narrow loss, as has been the case so far in quite a few games.
Yeah. I think one of the first things I said on the pods was I want to see growth from minute 1 to minute whatever it is at the end of the season, and there has been that clearly in the first 7 games, and both individual and team. Individuals, you talk about Mackenzie Martin, you talk about Alex Mann, Ellis Bevan, come on leaps and bounds, fair play to him. Cam Winnett as well is, I didn't know he had the control to his game that he does. Also, there's been so many other positives, whether it be Willis Halahola and Lilo playing in the centres together, something that I don't think any Cardiff fan thought they'd see again, which is great to see. But yeah, I think overall there has been frustrations, but if you're looking for positives, there are so many, and not just the youngsters as well. Like Ellis Jenkins was absolutely, I know he made a mistake this week, but last week he was so good, and seeing him back to his best is well, I think I really enjoyed that, and it was pretty special to see in all the clips as well of him showing his leadership as well was phenomenal. So all in all, I'm more positive than I thought it'd be after 7 games, actually, even though frustrated that Cardiff haven't coming away with 6, maybe even 7 wins.
Yeah, if you told me just before pre-season, given all the issues we had and literally trying to find everyone and his mate to come and fill up the squad, 7, just over a third of the season in, we'd be 1-2 drawn 1, and in 12th in the table, and we picked up a point in every game. We picked up, when the 4 games we lost, we picked up the points. I'd have bitten your hand off. Said that'd be great. So, it's a huge positive for me that they've exceeded the expectations I had at the start and all the woes. That I am disappointed with those. We mentioned those 3 games that we let slip, but at the same time, I do feel like we could be 5 or 6 from 7 here, and and then that means then that harder at back end of the season that actually makes life a little bit easier because we've got that cushion now. We've got to really fight. But yeah, I said the performances like Shane Hughes, he's got sort of trying to be very fast tracked into that Josh Turnbull, just chuck him anywhere in the back 5 and he'll do a job. And I thought he played quite well in the second row. Like you can tell you're losing a little bit of weight, but then when you've got like a proper second row in there, I thought Teddy Williams, actually, Kieran Azrat and Corey Domachowski, I feel like they've come back from that Wales camp and the World Cup, and they look so much better than they did before. And I thought they were great at the end of last season. It's great seeing Josh Adams back on the park. I think he looks assured. Cam Winnett looks amazing. We're all looking forward to having can win it, and Jacob Beetham having a nice ding-dong battle. And actually, I think Jacob Beetham, unless Matt Sherritt makes a position switch stick, so I think actually he went into 12 by the end of the game. I think he's going to struggle. He's going to struggle to see game time, because I wouldn't be dropping Winnett at the moment, because I think he's been one of our standout players. Alex Mann, again, another young player who I thought was unbelievable. I said that's well over 20, 30 seconds. So I think I'll leave it there. But I think I'd say probably maybe a good B plus performance, exceeding expectations, but definitely room for improvement. So now we get on to the big boy competition of the Champions Cup. So they're not Heineken Cup now, as I'm not using the actual title sponsor name. So we've got a nice easy game up first up. So reigning top 14 champions Toulouse away. So obviously, it is in our favour because we have won the last two away. So we won 28-0 a couple of years ago, and then in 2017 we won by a couple of points. Obviously, the first game I mentioned was the COVID cancellation, but it still counts. It's still in all the record books. So how are we all feeling about Toulouse away?
Not too confident, but that's never stopped us in the past, has it? I feel worried about obviously Alice Jenkins will likely be suspended, quite a few injuries in the back row, so we're looking at probably Alex Mann at 7, which is a bit bonkers when you think of the amount of options we have at 7 that we somehow don't have any now. So I back Alex Mann to do well at 7 because he's been phenomenal, as you said, this season. But I just think it's going to be a tough ask, especially seeing the teams that Toulouse have put out recently. They've got all their big guns playing, like Dupont, Flamand, Bailly, pretty much more or less full strength, apart from, as I can see, no Marchand, no Jack Willis, and no Untermatt. Yeah. So I find as well that I remember last time we played them at home during the COVID, when we had all the academy kids, there was this big fuss about how they'd lost the week before, and they really hate to play. They're really angry when they're on the back of a loss, and obviously they've just lost this weekend, so that'll be great, won't it?
Yeah, it's a bit like when you play the All Blacks on the back of a loss, and they say no one likes the All Blacks don't like losing twice in a row. I don't know about you, Colin, but for me, I kind of feel like for this game, it's just go out and have fun. I think more than anything, like almost don't worry about the result. I mean, let's be fair, we're always considered a joke team in Champions Cup, because how we qualified in it, but. I mean, it's a bit of a joke competition these days. You can get through to the last 16 with basically on one win. We have been the past couple of seasons. So do you think it's a case of Sherritt just sort of rest some of the top players? I mean, I don't know if we can actually afford to rest anyone. I don't think we've got the squad depth at the moment, but I think just have it as a hit out and just go have fun. See if we can score some tries, because that's something we've struggled to do so far this season.
Yeah, I think that's basically it. Yeah, Matt Sherritt said that he can't really rotate the side. And I think short of asking Dan Fish and Scott Andrews if they can lace their boots up, I think there aren't many extra options really in that squad that can be called upon. Maybe a bit of rotation. Maybe see the likes of Beetham you mentioned. Maybe see. Max Clark hasn't played much considering he's on loan. Maybe someone like him might be an opportunity. Evan Lloyd, maybe give him a start in these sort of opportunities. But at the same time, it's going to do no one good to get drummed by 50 points. So I think I want to see Cardiff throw the ball around. I really do. And I think playing in a similar style that we saw 2 years ago, or whenever it was in that COVID game, would be nice. But at the same time, we've been in every game so far. So it'd be really nice to be at some stage, say it's 50, 60 minutes, be within a score, be within 10 points and in the game to show that can compete at the level, and also then to build on that performance for the week later or later on in the Champions Cup campaign, because there are games to win in this Champions Cup. So yeah, I don't think it's a throwaway game as such, quite. But yeah, it's not going to be, not going to win. Let's be honest about it. It's not going to come away with a win. But as Josh Adams said at the end of his press conference, rather tongue-in-cheek, we've got nothing to lose. Yeah, that joke down was like a sack of potatoes, didn't it? That's genuinely how the response of the media room was as well.
I definitely did not make a similar one on the wrap just before coming on. But I said, going on team, I said we probably can't afford to do wholesale changes. But do you think there's room to freshen up the side a bit? You maybe rest some people who've had a lot of game time. Maybe moving them to the bench for putting some bench guys to start.
Yeah, of course. It depends, kind of. I think more so, you had players like Harry Millard and Lepeti Tamani were concussed, so it'll be interesting to see if they are now available this weekend, because I think more so Lepeti Tamani. I think if Ellis Jenkins is out as well, which he will be, then you've kind of got a leadership figure against Toulouse. You've got a bloke there who's played in France himself. He'd be kind of so valuable in that team on this weekend. And I think as great as it was to see Mackenzie Martin play on the weekend, it again would be a big task for him to start again this weekend at 8. It's a case of, you look at how much they benefited a couple of years ago when they, you had the kids essentially playing Toulouse. And you've got to think, I know Winnett didn't play in that exact game, but obviously played against Quins the week after. You've got to think, would he be the player he is right now if he hadn't experienced that? So I think to a degree, it'll be kind of so valuable for someone like Alex Mann as well, who's almost destined to start. So I think there needs to be kind of a halfway house of, you kind of have this youth and it, like we have, I think we've given 6 players this season their first team URC debut, which is huge. So if you continue to have someone like Evan Lloyd as well on the bench, I think he's been quite strong when he's come off the bench, but kind of maintain that experience. Like, I wouldn't be against if one of Halaholo and Lilo isn't starting, kind of go down that route.
Yeah. So is that, so that's this sort of thing I was thinking of, do you start Hamer Webb and move Mason Gray back to 13 and put one of Halaholo or Lilo on the bench, or do we bring Ben Thomas back in if he's fit? Yeah, it's more that sort of refreshing, Jockey's tried rotating the props around a bit as well, so that you haven't got one that's always doing 60 odd minutes, and it keeps it fresh. I think it actually works quite nicely. Ospreys, I thought they did to quite good effect last season. I just kind of looking forward to this game. It's just, sometimes it's nice after 7 solid weeks of a competition just to have a break and see something different and see weird and wonderful matchups. I mean, we can go into predictions now. I don't think it's going to necessarily be pretty for Cardiff, but if it can at least be a decent enough show, and I feel it's one of those ones. It's a cliche, but if the performance is there, then I'd be quite happy. Don't know about you guys?
Yeah. Performance / be in the game after 50, 60 minutes. Yeah, I'd be happy. I think that's give a couple of players an opportunity that they haven't had this season, maybe. But yeah, the main thing is, I think, focus on next week and weeks after. I think that's more of a priority looking ahead rather than this weekend. Obviously, it'd be amazing to win, but I think, let's be realistic. The sights have to be set on different goals. You see what Ospreys did on the weekend, going out to Benetton playing second team. That's I don't think that's an opportunity that Cardiff have got with all of the injuries, back row especially, but giving players opportunities but also remaining competitive is always a challenge. But I think that's a balance that has to be struck this weekend, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So that game is on Saturday at 3:15. So actually a time that most fans on my Twitter feed say is perfect. It's not a typically French time. So I think that game will be live on TNT Sports and S4C. So take your pick which one of those you'd rather watch it for. Me personally, I pay an awful lot of money for BT, so I will be I'll be making the most of TNT Sports. I think that's everything we need to say about that game. Unfortunately, no Rags fixture to talk about because their game against Carmarthen Quins got called off for a frozen pitch. I don't know how the other two Premiership teams fared.
Didn't play. Merthyr Pontypridd was also called off.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, and then we were the only stupid buggers. Can we just pretend that game was called off due to this? Make me feel better.
This weekend is cup fixtures, quarterfinals. Yeah. So I think Ebu are at home to Cardiff, and I think Merthyr are at home to, I want to say Quins. That rings a bell in my brain, but I'll have to double check that. But yeah, so that's something to look forward to this weekend. If hopefully the games go ahead, depending on weather, obviously. But yeah, that's something to look forward to.
It's looking a lot warmer. Well, I say a lot warmer. It's single figures to maybe 10 degrees C, but at least they're all in like above freezing, which should be quite nice after this weekend. Unless either of you two have anything else you want to bring up.
We giving a shout out to Glantav, Andrew?
Yeah, we might as well. Especially
final.
They've got they're in the cup final at the Principality on Wednesday. So I don't know who they're playing, if I'm being honest.
I'll be messaging Josh Phillips this week, and he's part of the coaching staff up there, I think, now at Glantav. He did message me and tell me Llandovery, I think. Llandovery.
It's a 7:00 kickoff, I believe. So I think it's finals day as well, the whole day, the Principality. So I believe it's free entry. So I'll certainly be there for the Glantav game. So yeah, definitely go down if you get a chance.
Excellent. So I think that's the plug there. Just a reminder, you can if you want to send us a message or a review about the pod, you can find us on at Cardiff_Central, or we're also on Facebook and Instagram at Cardiff Central Podcast. Andrew, if people want to find you, if they're not already one of the masses who follow you, where can they find you?
On YouTube, I'm just Andrew Forde with an E at the end of Forde. On Twitter, I believe I'm Andrew F Rugby, and then various other socials. I'll just be Andrew Forde Rugby.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming on tonight, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Feel free to come and step in, and if you fancy chatting Cardiff to sensible, sane people like all Cardiff fans are. Thank you, Carwyn, my co-host, for carrying on, and most importantly, thank you all for listening. Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Cardiff Central Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.